The room went dead silent the second I said it. Not the awkward pause people politely ignore. This was the heavy, suffocating kind that makes your skin crawl. My husband blinked like he'd heard wrong. His mother froze mid-bite, and for the first time in years I didn't soften it with a smile. My name is Elena. I'm 34, married 7 years, and I had always been the reasonable one. The calm one, the easy one to overlook. I earned more than my husband, covered most of our lifestyle, yet I was still treated like a temporary guest in my own marriage, especially by his mother, Marina. That dinner started like every other. Her apartment reeked of overcooked chicken and artificial lemon scent. The table was set like we were on trial. Marina threw out her usual questions wrapped in poison. "Elena, bonuses are still so unpredictable, aren't they?" Her eyes flicked to my bag. I answered calmly the way I always had. Stable job. Grateful, never mentioning how my salary paid for the car outside, the vacations she bragged about, or the medical bill she'd quietly passed to my husband the previous month. Then she laughed that soft, condescending laugh. "Well," she said, turning to my husband, "at least her income helps the family when we need it." That's what wives are for, right? Something inside me finally snapped into place. I looked straight at my husband, not her, and said it quietly but clearly. One more comment from his mother about my salary, and polite conversations would end forever. I would explain the boundaries myself about money, respect, and ownership. He said nothing, just reached for his water, eyes down. Marina smiled like she'd already won. That's when I understood this had never been about dinner. On the drive home, city lights streaked past the windows while my husband stayed silent. I waited for him to defend me, to say anything. Instead, he sighed and muttered, "You didn't have to make it so awkward." Awkward, not disrespectful, not invasive, just awkward. That word sharpened everything. Marina had spent years framing her digs as concern, comments about my generosity, jokes about how lucky my job was, constant hints that family comes first. Every single time my husband smoothed it over. "She doesn't mean it. Just ignore her. Family is family." But family doesn't send midnight Venmo requests. Family doesn't forward renovation quotes. Family doesn't treat your income like their rightful inheritance. Lying awake that night beside him, I finally admitted the pressure wasn't random. It was calculated. And I was the only one still pretending it was. The first real break came a week later, disguised as a casual request. Over morning coffee, my husband mentioned his mother was thinking of downsizing. Then he added that she wondered if we could help cover the gap for a few months. The word "we" felt wrong. When I asked how much, the pause before his answer said everything. The number he named was almost exactly my full monthly take-home pay. Not extra money, not savings, my salary. I let out one sharp laugh. "And you agreed to this?" he frowned. "I said we'd discuss it," but discuss had always meant I would eventually agree. That night I opened my laptop and went through our shared accounts. The small transfers I once overlooked now formed a clear pattern. Utilities I didn't use, subscriptions I never approved, miscellaneous gifts. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was hundreds of quiet ones, all normalized, and he never thought I'd actually check. The real humiliation came publicly, of course. At Marina's birthday lunch the following Sunday, the whole extended family and neighbors were there. I sat quietly in a simple dress, watching and listening. Midway through dessert, Marina stood with her glass raised. "I just want to thank Elena," she said warmly, eyes sparkling, "for being such a supportive wife. Some women forget that once you're married, the money isn't just yours anymore." Polite laughter rippled across the table. My husband smiled along. I felt something inside me go cold and quiet. I stood up, raised my own glass, and said calmly, "To clarity, because misunderstandings grow when people assume access they were never given." The room froze. Marina's smile faltered. My husband hissed, "Sit down." I didn't. That was the moment they all realized I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. I didn't cry afterward. I showered, changed, and sat on the edge of the bed while my husband paced, talking about tone, intentions, and how I'd embarrassed everyone. Everything except his own responsibility. His words washed over me like noise. I was already moving forward, calmly, precisely. I listed every contribution, every account I funded, every casual permission I'd once given out of misplaced trust. I reviewed old messages. I called the bank and separated everything. I changed authorizations. I drafted one clear, professional email outlining new boundaries and reimbursement expectations. No drama, just facts. When my husband saw me working, he looked at me like I was speaking a language he'd never learned. I smiled softly. "Don't worry, I'm handling it." The first call came 3 days later. Marina, voice dripping with sweetness. "Elena, darling, there seems to be a problem with this month's transfer." I let the silence stretch. "There isn't a problem, the access was temporary. It's been corrected, but we were counting on that money." "I know," I replied evenly. "That's why I sent the email. Future help requires agreement. Past amounts need settling." She called me dramatic. I told her I was simply being accurate. That evening, my husband came at me with papers, panic in his eyes. "You didn't even tell me you were doing all this." "I warned you," I said. Then came the pressure campaign. Marina stopped calling me and went straight to him, long messages, voice notes, tears. Claims that I was humiliating her, that good wives don't keep ledgers, that I was tearing the family apart. But those words no longer reached me through him. I had already stepped out of the triangle. When he came home one night looking broken and said she was threatening to tell everyone I was greedy, I simply replied, "She already did, publicly, at her own lunch." Remember the toast? Eventually the repayment demand went out, itemized, dated, undeniable. When the deadline passed, I quietly involved a lawyer, not to destroy but to formalize. A formal letter arrived at her door. Suddenly everyone wanted private conversations. Marina paid, quietly, completely, every single dollar. The lawyer had uncovered years of family help, quietly routed through my accounts with tax implications she couldn't risk exposing. When my husband finally sat across from me, voice cracking, he said, "You could have ruined her." I shook my head. "I gave her a choice." He asked if we were okay. I looked at him gently and said, "I warned you, not her, you." 2 weeks later, I moved out peacefully, financially secure, legally clean. Marina lost her access. My husband lost the comfort of staying silent, and I finally gained what I hadn't had in years, full control without cruelty. Money reveals entitlement. Boundaries reveal character. And the moment I stopped being useful, I saw exactly who they really were.